Today, we're going to be looking at how the religion of Islam managed to conquer the Western world as we know it. Not just the Western world, but also other countries near where they resided or near where they started. Now, if you want to go back to the very beginning and how the religion of Islam officially began, you can also look at the Abrahamic accounts from the book of Genesis, with Abraham obviously birthing the likes of Isaac and then Ishmael. Ishmael came from Hagar, which was one of Sarah's or Sarai's slaves or servants from where? Egypt. And as a result, Sarai decided to go against God's wishes, gave up her handmaid to the likes of Abraham, told Abraham to sleep with her. I mean, what a wife, right? Honestly. And as a result, Hagar fell pregnant with Ishmael. And as a result of all the tension between Sarai and Hagar and Ishmael and all the rest of that stuff going on, family dynamics, am I right? Abraham was forced to kick out Ishmael and Hagar, and away they went on their merry way. But it seems like Hagar and Ishmael relied solely on God, and God looked after them for a period of time. And then somewhere along the way, not sure exactly where, but somewhere along the way, Ishmael's lineage fell away from the real God and somehow decided to incorporate the fake God, or the fake God, sorry, or the wrong God, and that God being Satan. The religion of Islam, I believe, is a death cult. It was born out of hate. It was born out of trying to take over the world. They think that the Quran is the final revelation of God to the likes of the Prophet Muhammad. Somehow, this one man was able to receive the final revelation from God, and then he has been instructed to share that with the rest of the world. Why is it that God chose Muhammad, which we don't know anything really much about, aside from the fact that he was a warmonger, a warlord, and someone that decided to behead 600 people in one night because he felt like it, and also decided to marry a 6-year-old Aisha and then R-word her at 9 years old? We don't have any paintings. We don't even know what he really looked like. None of the stuff. But the thing is, we can really, even though we don't necessarily know what Jesus looked like, we have a little bit of an inkling in what he looked like, right? We have pictures of what Jesus looked like. Muhammad, you're not allowed to draw any photos of him. You can't really talk about Muhammad too much, especially in a negative way, because if you point out the error of Muhammad's ways, God forbid that you do that, you can't question in the religion of Islam, because as we know, the religion of Islam talks about it being or worshipping the most deceitful of all deceivers. Now, I don't know about you, but my Bible doesn't say that Allah is the deceiver, Allah being who they claim to be God. And Jesus, the Son of God, right, never claimed to lie or never lied at all. He never sinned. And he told us not to lie either. And what's interesting is Islam, in the Quran, it says that you must lie, you must deceive, and then you also must hate the Jews and must kill the Jews and Christians as well. And you must conquer the world. You must spread Islam throughout the world. And if they do not want to receive the final revelation, according to Muhammad and the Hadith and Muhammad's final words, which is what the Hadith is, right? The Quran is apparently Allah's final words to Muhammad, and the Hadith is Muhammad's final words to Muslims. So that's interesting, right? Because there's lots of contradictions in both the Quran and the Hadith, especially when it comes to the time period that Muhammad lived in. But anyway, we can get through that at another time. But one thing I've found very, very interesting that Christopher Hitchens, Gad Saad, and many others have made mention of, there's many other religious scholars out there that have studied the religion of Islam and know a lot more than what I do. But how did the religion of Islam spread throughout the Middle East and conquer the majority of the Middle East? Do you know why we had the Crusades? It's because Islam was spreading and taking over and conquering land, all in the name of jihad. That's how they do it. If they don't want to convert, you are either killed or you are enslaved. And as a result, the Muslims took over a vast majority of the Middle East. Here's a video to show you throughout the centuries. We're beginning in the 600 AD. So after Christ went back to live with God, after that's happened, you have the religion of Islam taking over the Middle East. And then not just the Middle East, but then they spread to the Western world as we know it today. So it's all been happening over a vast amount of time, but you've got to look at from the very beginning when they started and why did they start. Have a watch.
And here it starts. Islam burst out of the Arabian Peninsula and immediately starts attacking the Middle East. And notice that it doesn't take long until they're crossing the Mediterranean and attacking southern France and Spain. Notice something here. Most people think of Islam, they think of Arabs. They think of Arabs, they think of desert. And yet here we see that Islam is projecting power throughout the Mediterranean. Notice how the little islands of the Mediterranean are getting hammered. The navy of Islam would attack coastal towns, kill, rob, and then take slaves. So this whole battle map as it unfolds, you're seeing slaves being taken. Over 1 million slaves were taken out of Europe into the Islamic world. That's something you don't think about much, but it's absolutely true. There were over 200 battles fought in Spain alone. And we also see, however, on the east coast in Turkey, that Islam is trying to break into Europe. Now, what's going to happen is in Spain, this ongoing fight that lasted for 400 years, is the Christians are going to push back the Muslims. But now then what has happened over in the east is that Constantinople has fallen, and now then Eastern Europe is getting hammered. The jihad now comes to Eastern Europe. It's pushed out now of Spain. Northern Africa is now completely Islamic. The Middle East is completely Islamic. This is all jihad, relentless jihad. And why is it so relentless? Well, Muhammad was relentless in his jihad. And these people are good students of Islam, and so it's against the kafir, on and on. It was traditional that when the Sultan came to power, the brand new Sultan, he would immediately try to launch new wars because he was going to be noted in his Islamic history as to how well he fought against the kafir.
Interesting, isn't it? How the Muslim world coming out of the Middle East, they easily conquered the Middle East and the African continent. But when they tried to conquer Eastern Europe, for example, every single time they tried and they waged war after war, and they did it through radical jihad. They had to do it so quick. And they had to become warmongers. You know why that is? Because Muhammad was a warmonger. He wanted nothing but wars and death. And the only way you can spread your religion is, according to Muslims back in the day, and even sometimes today, believe it or not, we're starting to see more and more of it. You cannot be a good student of the religion of Islam if you do not believe in the words of the Hadith. Meaning what Muhammad said. So if Muhammad said, I am going to become a warmonger and I'm going to take over and I'm going to do this through jihad, I am going to pretty much wipe out the Western world through domination and spread this religion, this death cult, through conquering. I'm going to take people as slaves. I'm going to tell people this is either your option. You convert, die, or become a slave. Up to you. And you're going to live under bondage. So the Eastern European, which was predominantly Christian at the time, were looking at this going, we can't accept Islam taking over, number one, the Holy Lands. And so the Crusades were waged as a result of that. Wars for hundreds of years, on and off. Crusades were waged. I think there was a number of them. I think the 5 or something along those lines. Some people can correct me on that, but there were so many crusades that took place, and some of them were successful while others were not. You know why there were so many crusades? It's because a new sultan would get into power and immediately go, I'm going to be a good Muslim. I'm going to start war after war after war and try and conquer and have my good name, or my name, so to speak, in the good books of the religion of Islam. I'm going to be remembered. But the problem is with the religion of Islam, you're not really remembered that much. The only one that's really remembered the most is Muhammad because of what he did, right? So there's a vast majority of Muslim sultans that tried to conquer through the Crusades that we only remember them because of the fight back from the Christians. You've got to know their name, who they're fighting. You can't just say, oh, Muslim Sultan X, Muslim Sultan Y. No, you got to mention the name, but also when they got defeated so badly, their name is also remembered in defeat. So the Muslims then, after trying to conquer Eastern Europe, decided, you know what we're going to do? We're going to now conquer Africa because Africa is a lot easier for us to conquer. And that's exactly what they did. And so one of the main reasons why lots of African countries and continents are struggling with the religion of Islam and radical, so a very radical place at the moment, and why so many Christians are dying and being slaughtered over in African countries at the moment, like Nigeria, for example, which is another video for another time, is because Islam has been there for a very, very long time. And the moment people start realizing exactly what the Quran says, they're going, I want my name to be remembered amongst the history books of all Muslims. And so they do exactly what Muhammad instructs them to do, which is commit, you know what? Why is it that the majority of T-word people coming out of Pakistan commit major atrocities around the world in the name of a dead prophet? Why do they do it in the name of Islam, for example? And some people go, oh, it's a religion of peace. You can't talk about the religion of Islam in a negative way. Why not? What's going to happen exactly? But Christians, they can be, persecuted, you name it. Here is a video of Christopher Hitchens, the legendary Christopher Hitchens, I should say, even though he was an atheist, a very staunch atheist. He was a very intelligent man, taken a little bit too soon, I believe. But here is Christopher Hitchens talking about the religion of Islam.
As a Sufi Muslim, I'm very ruffled by the title of your book. Did you have to settle for the literal negation of Akbar?
Yes. I thought so. Thank you for that. Thank you. At the moment, it's very clear to me the most toxic form that religion takes is the Islamic form. The horrible idea of wanting to end up with Sharia, the state of religious law, and that the best means of getting there is holy war, and that Muslims have a special right to feel aggrieved enough to demand this, I think is absolute obscene wickedness, and I think their religion is nonsense. God speaks to some illiterate merchant warlord in Arabia, and it contains the answers to all human. Don't waste my time. It's bullshit. But you're saying the same about also that God speaks. The Archangel Gabriel speaks only Arabic. All religions claim to be revealed truth, but Islam rather dangerously says ours is the last and final one. There can't be any more after this. This is God's last word. Now that's straight away a temptation to violence and intolerance, and if you note, it's a temptation they seem quite willing to fall for. Every other reminds people that we're in a very serious struggle with a very depraved religion.
We're in a very serious struggle with a very depraved religion. And he says the most toxic form the religion takes is the religion of Islam. Why is it that you want Sharia? Sharia, according to Christopher Hitchens, getting through that is through Sharia, holy war. Go through it by any means necessary. Are you going to tell me that God sent his final word to a illiterate warmonger warlord in Arabia, and that was it? That was that. God himself. No, mate. That is a bunch of nonsense. And then Christopher Hitchens so wisely puts it that how can it be? How can it be that Islam is the final? There can't be any more. It is the final. That's it. Done. So God supposedly gave the final word. And that final word is a temptation to violence through what they consider to be a holy war. You know what it is? It's a bloody cult, man. You can't tell me that it's not, because it is. And I understand that some factions of Christianity can be considered a cult too, because they take it a little bit too far. The religion of Islam also takes a little bit too far as well. Am I saying that Christians didn't take it too far in the Crusades? Yeah, I'm saying that they did. I understand that. But the Crusades would not have been waged if not for the religion of Islam starting it. And it's been going on for centuries. And now we're starting to see in the Western world how Islam is being spread in the Western hemisphere. In Christian countries, they're now taking over. Terms like Islamophobia, things like that. So their holy war now has been beguiled. It's under the guise of deception. We will come into this country, we'll act peaceful, and then really, when the time is right, then we'll strike. It's something quite cunning, isn't it? Quite cunning indeed. Anyway, so I hope this video helped explain a little bit in how Islam decided to spread. Now, I know you've got Sunni and Shiite Muslims. Both of them, I understand there's a little bit of a split between the two of them, and you've got one of them that's a lot more radical than the other, but still you can get T-word organizations, T-word people from both sects in the religion of Islam, especially when it is Sunni. I think it's Sunni. Yeah, Sunni is the crazy one. They're both crazy, but one of them is more crazy than the other. Let's just say that. Anyway, that's enough from me. You guys take care. Be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.